Hello everyone and welcome to a very special Fight and Focus in the Crosshairs with Cody Rhodes. I'm Josh Shernoff, and before we get to that interview with Cody, I want to make sure all of you know that AEW Plus has a new price of $6.99 US, which for our friends in the UK, that's only a little over £5. What do you get for that price? How about AEW Dynamite, Rampage, Dark, Elevation, and now TNT specials like Battle of the Belts, which comes to you live January 8th, right here on AEW Plus on FITE. Make sure you go to AEWplus.com, powered by FITE, and sign up now. All right, without any further ado, he's an executive vice president of AEW, the first ever and current TNT champion, one of the biggest stars in professional wrestling today. Please welcome the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here.
I really get excited when people say the executive vice president thing. It still kind of tickles me. Three years in, it really, looking at how like the landscape of the industry's changed, the success of the last 3 years, all of it, the whole journey, that's still, when we signed on to be executive vice presidents, I don't think it really, well, of course it wasn't real. Like it didn't hit me until really recently. I feel like it hit me because I don't know. It's like being in office, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. Gosh, it comes with its own, they're not, I don't use the term stress, but a very different workload. And I was not adjusted to that workload until I feel like about 6 months ago. And now, yeah, it takes time to go from being one of the boys, and I mean that just in the sense of how we say the boys, the locker room, and then to not, but still wanting to be tethered to, oh, well, we're wrestlers, and that at the end of the day, we're a roster in a locker room, but then there's those who need, management, and those who need structure, and everyone's got their own projects. Tony's got all these projects, Matt and Nick and Kenny and myself. It's just a different workload. And man, I feel like that's not at all, you didn't ask me a question or anything, but I just went on waxing poetic here about it. But it's really, I'm just so glad for the last 3 years. I feel like more than any of the people I managed or tried to make a project or tried to cultivate, I think I've learned more myself about me and my mistakes than I have any of theirs. And that's very good thing. Very good thing.
Yeah, that's a great way to grow professionally and personally.
Yeah.
Look at it, if we look back, I mean, you mentioned 3 years. AEW has not been around for long, and certainly launched right before what would prove to be an incredibly challenging time for everybody, personally and professionally. Take us back to 2019, because we were talking off air about the picture behind you and how much is the same, but how much has changed in such a short amount of time. Take us back to how things really started here with AEW. And of course, we're here talking about AEW Plus, which is where if you get AEW Plus, that's where you get all your AEW action. But tell us a little bit, going back to 2019, how did it all start and what has this meant to you so far?
I mean, the origin story of AEW is real. I've said this in a few interviews. It really depends on who you ask. Because maybe not everyone's being honest, or maybe they're just hyperbolic in the sense of all wrestlers are. But really, I look at Matt Jackson and Nick, and I look at Tony Khan, and that initial, and this is a public story now, Mike Johnson, our good friend Mike, had set up that meeting. And what happened on that phone call changed the industry, because what we were doing at Ring of Honor was definitely significant, and it was definitely changing and moving the goalpost, and it was it was leaving the business better than we found it. But the capital, the infrastructure, his picture of coming back, wrestling, returning to TNT, for me, that's just the wildest thing you could possibly hear. Hey, we have an opportunity to be on TNT and the Warner Media networks, and of course on FITE and all these other areas where we can be seen, and I would have a very similar job to the one that my dad had when I was growing up. Yeah, just that phone call really just changed everything, and then probably just as important as that phone call, the idea that we would all stay together. I think that's where a lot of, and I say promoters, and I think we all know who we're talking about, but there were other promoters as well. WWE had thrown their name in the hat for all of us. Impact had talked to, I mean, everyone had talked to us. And the idea, they all were under the impression that the package would not stay tight. The package would not stay together. No way. There is a prominent wrestling figure who told us that someone would be able to buy us and we wouldn't, stay together. And that's the most important piece to that puzzle. Tony had the infrastructure, he had the foresight, he had the mind, he had the connections, but he also had these amazing free agents all right at the same time. And I tell fans all the time, they one of the coolest things ever is when fans thank you for AEW at these meet and greets and when you meet them. And I always tell them, well, it's a group effort, it's a team effort. Thank Tony, thank the Bucks, thank Kenny. But I also tell them that this will never happen again. Like the stars are never going to align in this situation where these top free agents, like just a genuine super group of wrestlers, we're all free and we're all going to go here. And taking that leap of faith was what everyone did with AEW. As wrestlers, we took a leap of faith, and as fans, they took a leap of faith. And that very first Double or Nothing in MGM Grand, and then all the way to the October 2nd, the very first Dynamite, it was all a leap of faith. Now it's easy to come to AEW, and the infrastructure's here, and the table's been set, as I've gone on record saying. But in the beginning, it was a big gamble that we all took, all of us, everyone in this conversation, everyone who watches, and God, it paid off. But that it paying off, you want to stay at the table, you want to keep playing, and that's the area where, like I mentioned, the workload earlier, that's what really it is like, how do we keep them as happy as possible, our fans, and how do we keep them coming? And it's really one of the best signs ever is we were just in Dallas for Dynamite, and it was the third time we'd been in Dallas, or Garland to be specific, and the house was bigger this time, and it was bigger the time before that, and so we've grown, and that growth, that's 3 years ago. What would have been my goals? We've superseded them, and we hope to keep doing that, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. You mentioned Double or Nothing, and one of the questions I had for you was, what's your favorite AEW pay-per-view? But I know a lot of people, when they look at AEW, myself included, one of my favorite matches in the entire history of AEW would have to be you versus Dustin. What to you stands out as your favorite AEW pay-per-view? Is it your own match? Is there maybe another match or an event as a whole that you remember, that you look at and you say, hey, that was, I think, AEW so far at its very best?
I actually think it's probably a really good sign that my favorite two pay-per-views, one of them I wasn't on, and that's most recently All Out, where Bryan Danielson joined us, Adam Cole joined us, that pay-per-view, and then of course the one you mentioned, the original Double or Nothing. I know which pay-per-view in my mind maybe I thought was softest. I've never thought a pay-per-view we put out was weak by any means, especially bell to bell. But the original Double or Nothing, that was a feeling like no other in that energy and what this was and what it could be and its constant evolution since. And then to have, 3 years later, All Out, where big free agents, not just the surprises, but the bell to bell content of that show was significant. And I think something for everybody. I know that I'm a little in the minority in terms of what I like in wrestling. I like storytelling and interviews, and I'll use WrestleMania 3 as an example. I like Hogan versus Andre. I also like Steamboat Savage, but I still like Hogan versus Andre more, and I love Steamboat versus Savage. But I know there are wrestling fans, and there are people in management, and there are people who like they like the latter more, and that's what I like about AEW. There really is something for everybody, and you'll hear all these other luminary wrestling figures tell you can't do that. You've got to have one singular focus, and I think that's BS. We don't have one singular wrestler on the roster. Right. It's a very diverse palette. The table has a lot of different dishes on it, and I think that's real good for fans.
Speaking of diversity, there's a diverse number of shows. AEW Plus has Dynamite, Rampage, Dark, Elevation, not to mention the additional content that you can find on there as well. One coming up is Battle of the Belts. Can you tell us a little bit in general about Battle of the Belts and what we can expect from that in January?
Well, I'm really excited that Tony named it Battle of the Belts because it's right there in the name. I've really disliked in wrestling in the past, and this is across the board, not speaking to anybody specifically, but I've disliked in wrestling when a belt has been tarnished or they've lost their value to a wrestler. Don't be fooled. You talk to a lot of wrestlers. We love our belts. We really, really do. Most wrestlers who are worth their salt have their own display of all the belts they've ever won, and it's a significant thing. It's no different than in Hollywood winning the Academy Award. It's unique in that sense, and him to name it Battle of the Belts and put the emphasis on titles. And I'm not sure if all titles will be defended in this very first TNT special, but I do know, just with that in mind, it being the very first special that we're doing as part of the new contract, myself and the Bucks and Kenny and Tony, that's not one that we can leave to we're not capable. We are not able at this point to have a B+ show. Everything has to be A+. And that's something I'm really looking forward to, that we can still make these new memories, and we're going to continue to make them. Battle of the Belts will be I'm sure a big emphasis on the actual titles themselves, which then lean into an emphasis, for the most part, other than the TNT title, lean into an emphasis on the rankings. These were all things that we as a brand introduced, and it's not always easy right out of the gate to say, hey, that wrestling that you've been used to for 20 years, we're changing it all up. You might have been conditioned to this is how things go and this is how things go. And you might even be frustrated when you guess that we're going to go through this door, but we go through a different. And that's just because our brand does not share their identity or a different identity. It's very much AEW. That's the vaguest thing I've ever said, but I'm so sorry.
I get what you're saying.
I'm going to be straight with you. I'm excited about Battle of the Belts because it reminds me of Clash of the Champions. Mm-hmm. It's a special, and big things happen on nights like that. And I said we're not capable of never having a big night, but we are capable of making our nights bigger, if that makes any sense. And I'm very much looking forward to it. And hopefully I can walk into Battle of the Belts, perhaps, depending on what happens at Holiday Bash, a 3-time TNT champion. That would just make my day, and I'm positive it would make a lot of fans happy, and I'm sure it would make a lot of fans agitated as well, but that emotion is always what you're looking for.
Either way, they'll be watching.
Yep.
I wanted to talk again about Dynamite, Rampage, Dark, and Elevation. There's so much talent in AEW right now. There has been since day one, but I don't think there's ever been as much talent as there is right now. Some of those shows that I mentioned, really, they showcase the up-and-coming younger talent, some talent that's not even officially signed to AEW, but they really give opportunities to people. How important is it? There's a picture that's been going around the internet, and it's a lot of people holding championships 10 years ago in another
Oh, yeah.
company. And you look at that picture, and that was at the time, I remember that was saying, wow, look, this is the future. And now fast forward 10 years and everyone was right. That was the future, but it's like 90% AEW in that picture now. And I think that really speaks to the talent, the depth of the talent in AEW. But what I find fascinating is that even with that, you know, what was the young up and coming, you know, they're clawing their way to the top is now what maybe is considered more the established stars. But there's also so much emphasis on the young talent. How do you guys balance that to be able to give everybody that opportunity and that spotlight when the roster is so big?
I'm glad I can answer that question, because if I start talking about that picture, I definitely will get emotional. That picture has been floating around the last few days, and I know Cardona put a post out about it, and I didn't. I chose not to. I'm pretty much off of social at this point, but I chose not to only because I don't know, in my heart I didn't want to cheapen that day, but I will never forget Punk getting everyone together in Philly. I know exactly where it was, right over by catering, and to take that picture for the reason that we weren't sure how long it would be that way. And that was a really good call on his part. I do challenge people. I wish someone, maybe from WWE, if you're out there, if you're any of those photographers who we worked with, if anyone has the actual professional photo, I would love to see it, because I just have the one that was tweeted after, which was cell phone done. But man, that picture was definitely it could tell fortunes, if that makes any sense. There was something special about it. You asked about how we keep the roster and things like that in terms of growing and cultivating and everything. It's very simple. We have to provide layers of content, and Tony has provided layers of content. You just named all the shows. That's how we do it. Dark, for example, right now, Dark is the most fun thing on the planet. Oh gosh, I'm gonna see that back in a clickbait. I'm so terrified of interviews now. But here's I love it. That right now, the Universal Studio where we're filming at. If you've not been to a Dark taping, I really encourage you to go to one. Not only did you get to see, you know, 2 sessions sometimes. Not if you only see the one, that's one thing. But you meet a lot of people. I went around and made my rounds. I'm pretty sure I met every fan in the place, and I'm going to continue to do that whether I'm wrestling or not, just because it's a really cool, unique studio show where you see a lot of the up-and-coming talent, and they're not hindered by the larger booking of big-time Dynamite, of the hour length on Rampage, of the loaded aspect of a pay-per-view. They're really able to kind of grow like on this preserve and learn and figure stuff out, because there is an active audience, a particularly hardcore active audience. But gosh, right now I just have nothing but good things. That's some of the most fun I've had in wrestling. Was the most recent Dark session, and I just sit there in the chair and pretend to do stuff. I just, you know, just having a good time, and to see Tony. You know, Tony loves wrestling. If you ever get a chance to sit by him and watch wrestling, you can learn a lot from watching him watch it. But yeah, Dark's amazing, and it gives some of the up and coming talent a chance to fly. Elevation's amazing in the sense that they're in front of our bigger crowds, but they're under somewhat of the duress and stress of kind of a live TV situation, because it is that hour plus right before we go on the air with Dynamite, and that develops a whole different set of skills for a wrestler that they're going to need, because I'm sure you've seen covering the sport, not everyone's cut out for big time TV wrestling.
Sure.
Some of our favorites can't fathom the time, can't fathom the red light, commercial breaks, PIP, all this crazy stuff that makes being a TV wrestler a special trait. And that's why you see some of the same TV wrestlers dominating, because they're able to do it. But I like that variety of content that we offer, because I think it's best for our roster. Elevation, Dark, Dynamite Rampage, and now a special Battle of the Belts, 4 pay-per-views a year, opening up into 2022. Perhaps this is not me speaking on the company's behalf. It's more just me saying it would be wonderful to see a couple live events too, not unlike the House Always Wins that we did in Jacksonville, non-televised events that guys and girls can get more reps on and have a good time. And if you ever forget what this is all about, you just need to do one live event, and then you remember the fun that wrestling can certainly be. But yeah, it's going to be a big 2022.
Well, that was going to be my last question for you, because I know you are a busy man, and I appreciate you taking all this time to speak with us here on this special Fight and Focus. My last question, if you can just put it into a couple of words, what do AEW fans have to look forward to in 2022?
Well, as you know, I'm not capable of putting anything in a couple of words. I'm Dan Lambert, very verbose. I'm verbose. And I'll be honest, I'm not that busy today. Don't share that with anybody. But here's why I am on my third cup of coffee is Liberty went from sleeping through the night to not.
Oh, the regression.
And it hit hard today. I'm gonna be straight with you. It hit pretty hard, and I can't get mad at her because she's the coolest little thing on planet Earth. But yeah, it's new parent here, trying to figure it out. A lot of new parents at AEW, by the way. Shout out to friggin' Alex Reynolds, Hangman, Mox, Paul Turner. I'm pretty sure I'm missing one of the babies. There's all these babies. Tony's got a whole new generation of wrestlers. 2022 will be I think it's easy to say it'll be AEW's best year yet, because some people, that we're moving into our next phase of our relationship with FITE, our relationship with Warner Media. New talent is coming in, contracts coming up, all that crazy stuff you hear about makes for incredibly good wrestling television. Wrestling's best when it's as real as it could be, as real as you can make it, at least. And this is just a real time for the sport. It's also going to be wonderful to see. Tony likes this. I think he calls him the new face of AEW. It's kind of a new generation type. He talks about some of these new free agents. That is a wonderful dichotomy from the OGs, from the originals, and that also creates great wrestling and great stories to mix and match those characters and dip those toes into different sets of water. I imagine it'll be our biggest and most successful year yet, and I hope fans don't take that as me being arrogant or anything of that nature. We've continued to grow for 3 years, and I don't see us stopping because we love it too much. We genuinely do. If you come backstage, you've been backstage at AEW. There's no place like it. It has its own egos and problems and people who don't like each other and things of that nature. But for the most part, that's the most team effort place I've ever been a part of in my life. And I'm a egomaniac. So the fact that we have a team and they want to support me and I want to support them, oh man, that's the best feeling. I mean, it really does feel like you're going on the field with 10 other guys, 10 other girls, whatever it may be, and you need one another. And that brings it all back to, I'm sure you've seen it, wrestlers, they shake hands ad nauseum. Every time they see each other, they always shake hands. I remember my trainer telling me, I said, is that because of respect? He said, well, you could say that, but it's really because I need him to pick me up, put me down. I need her to get these people going. I need him to do. I mean, it was more about the fact that we need each other independently to do our jobs as a unit. And I see that more than ever at AEW. And as long as I am in the role I am, that's the thing I'd like to foster more than anything is remember we're a team. Can't eat each other up because we need to eat together. And I'm all over the place this morning, but I see AEW having a very big banner year. The specials are now part of it in 2022, and maybe as a little bit of a spoiler, it's not from AEW. This is just from me. Please, internet, it's just from me. I could see maybe some international flavor now that the travel bans are loosening up. But that's just me.
You can say it's just you, but the internet is going to run with that.
Yeah, they're really hard on Code Man lately.
Well, hey, thank you so much, though, for taking the time. I can tell you, especially as a father of three, I know what it's like to have to get through that third cup of coffee and not be doing an interview. So I appreciate you taking the time to do this. Thank you so much, everybody. The EVP, Cody Rhodes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again to Cody Rhodes for taking the time to chat with us today. Don't forget, Battle of the Belts comes to you live January 8th on AEW Plus on FITE. Not to mention the 4 weekly shows, specials, and more. If you haven't yet, subscribe now at the low price of $6.99 US dollars. And if you're in the UK, that's less than £5.50. Go to AEWplus.com, powered by FITE, and sign up now. This has been Fight and Focus in the Crosshairs with Cody Rhodes. I'm Josh Shernoff, wishing you a happy and healthy new year and reminding you to start the year off right with AEW Plus.